Alright, so let's take a look at this sum to product identities, using that to find the exact value. Uh, so we've got trig functions added together. Okay, so what we can do is if they're added or subtracted together, we can rewrite them as a product. So for instance, this one, sine x plus sine y, is equal to 2 sine x plus y over 2 times cosine x minus y over 2. So, and I'm not going to read through all of them, but you just basically got to pick out which one you're using. Okay, and this is the second example. This example, the angle measures will be in radians. The first example, the angle measures were in degrees. And this one's going to take a little longer because we're going to actually have to use another identity to work this one. So if we look at this, it says use sum to product identity to find the exact value of this. So we've got cosine of an angle minus cosine of another angle. So if we look at that, we can see it's this last one here is the one that we'll have to use, cosine x minus cosine y. So let's go ahead and write the formula down. So this is cosine x minus cosine y is equal to negative 2 times sine x plus y over 2 times sine x minus y over 2. Alright, so we can see here this would be x, this angle would be y, and then all we do is we take the angle of x, plug it in, we take the angle that y is, plug it in for y. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this one. So this is going to be negative 2 sine, and I've got x plus y, so that's 5 pi over 24 plus pi over 24, all that over 2, and then we've got sine of 5 pi over 24 minus pi over 24, all that over 2. Alright, so now we've got negative 2 sine, and this is going to be what, 6 pi over 24 over 2, okay, and sine, and this is going to be 4 pi over 24 over 2. Okay. Now let's just write it here. That's going to be negative 2 sine, and 6 pi over 24, that's pi over 4 divided by 2, and then this would be sine of pi over 6. Let me write that a little better. Pi over 6 over 2. Okay. Alright, so we've got to find the exact values of these. Okay, so we know this is 45 degrees and this is 30 degrees. Okay, we're just in radians. Now, look, if we take this, that's negative 2 sine, and this would be what? Pi over 8 if we simplified it, and this would be pi over 12. Okay, now we're looking for the exact value. That means they're not wanting you to use a calculator. Okay, we don't know the exact value of pi over 8 and pi over 12. That's not one of the special ones that we have to memorize. If you remember, the ones you need to memorize is what? 0, 30, 45, 60, 90, 180, 270, 360. Or if you're in radians, 0, then what? Pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and then back to 2 pi. Okay, well, if you notice the pi over 4 and the pi over 6, that was one of the ones that you should memorize, okay, because that's 45 and 30 degrees. We don't know these values, okay, we don't know those. So what do you think we might need to use here? Okay, so instead of writing this out like this, well, look, we've got sine x over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine x all over 2. If you remember your half angle identities, okay, so that's what we're going to have to use. And you can see x in this case is pi over 4, and x in this case is pi over 6. So we're going to have to use the double angle identity. I'm sorry, the half angle identity. Now notice the plus or minus here in front. Okay, well, how do we know which one to use? Well, it depends on which quadrant your angle's in. Well, pi over 8 and pi over 12, you can convert those to degrees, but both of these are in the first quadrant, and you can convert it to degrees to see that a little more easily. But they're in the first quadrant, so we know it's going to be positive because all the trig functions are positive in the first quadrant. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue with this. So that's negative 2. Alright, so now what we're going to do now is we're going to evaluate this one. Okay, and I'm going to write it in blue so you can see that everything is going to be this one. So in this case, the x is pi over 4. Okay, so this is going to be the square root of 1 minus cosine pi over 4 over 2. Okay, that's this one. Now we got to do this one. Okay, and I'll do this one in green. So this is times the square root, and in this case x is what? Pi over 6. So I plug the pi over 6 in. So that's 1 minus cosine pi over 6 over 2. And now we have the fun part of simplifying this thing. So let's see what we can do. So that's negative 2 times the cosine of 1 minus, and then the cosine of pi over 4, which is 45 degrees, is pi over 4. That's what? Square root of 2 over 2, all that over 2, times the square root of 1 minus, and then the cosine of pi over 6. Pi over 6, that's what? 30 degrees. The cosine of that is what? Square root of 3 over 2 over 2. Okay. Now we've got to simplify each of these. So if you remember back when you took college algebra, these are just complex fractions. So I'm going to multiply each term by the common denominator of the 2, the 1, and the 1. And in this case, the common denominator is what? 2. So I'm going to multiply each term by 2. And then same thing over here. I'm going to multiply each term by 2. So that's going to give me negative 2 square root, and that's going to be 2 minus, and see here the 2's cancel, and that's going to be square root of 2 over 4 times the square root, and this is going to be 2 minus, and then here the 2's cancel, so that's square root of 3 over 4. And so let's see what we get. We get negative 2 square root. Well, let's do this. So I'm just going to come over here to the side. This can be written as what? Square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over the square root of 4, which is the square root of 2 minus square root of 2, and then the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so this can be written as this. So that's going to be times the square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over 2, and then this would be the same thing, square root of 2 minus square root of 3 over 2. And then you can see this and this will cancel, so I'll be left with negative square root of 2 minus square root of 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 3 over 2, and there's the negative inside. Now, as far as what else do we need to do, I don't know. It probably just depends on what your teacher wants you to do. I'm not going to do it, but you could. Well, you could do this, 2 minus square root of 2 times 2 minus square root of 3 over 2, and then you could full this out. And that's another, well, let's just go ahead and do it. So that's negative, and that's square root. 2 times 2 is 4, and that's going to be negative 2 square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 2, and then that's going to be plus square root of 6, all that over 2. So, and that's really about all you can do with that one. So I guess you leave it like this, or you can leave it like this, whatever your teacher wants you to do. But there you go. So that one was a little long, but check out my other videos. Give me a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.